Hi, good morning. This is Ginger Cook. Today what I thought I would demonstrate is how to use mediums when you're adding a painting to get texture. We've talked a little bit about this. This particular painting was done without any mediums, and it's just a poppy field. It was one of my advanced class poppy paintings that I did for my online students. But I got to thinking that how much better this picture would look if it had some texture. Even though this is nice, not unhappy, but what if it had texture? But when you guys go to the store, you can get overwhelmed by all the brands of texture. What texture is it? Heavy gloss? Is it a light gloss? Is it extra heavy gloss gel? It just goes on, and then they all look the same, and you go home and you think, I'm not buying anything, I don't know. So let's just talk a little bit about some possibilities, because there's a lot of different ways to create texture in a painting, and I'm just going to mention a couple. Oftentimes in my pictures, if you go to gingercookstudios.com, you'll see some of my big works. And I use heavy gloss gel in this. And I'll probably combine it with like a modeling paste. I'll combine the two, which is nice. And the reason I'm not going to use this in the video is because the gloss reflects badly with the camera. And so it's not a good medium to demonstrate. But I do like it. Now, for the purpose of today's, and then here's something from Liquitex called Slow Dry Blending Gel. That's really not for texture. You wouldn't want this for texture, though this is a great stuff to have. I like it. So you're not going to want that. So, okay, so you didn't want that. And then, you're not going to get any texture if you're using gloss, medium, and varnish. That's, again, a flat stuff. So you're not going to be able to use this. So what? So you can use texture. This is called Extra Heavy Gel Molding Paste by Golden. And I like this. And I want you to notice when I bought this, May 2005. And I don't think I've been in here since then. And I'm going to open it up. And I want you to see something. It is still perfect. That's 10 years old. Conversely, not to say anything too crummy, but conversely, this is just my experience now. This was done by Liquitex. This is their molding paste, similar to this. When I opened it up today to see it was just solid rock in here now. It's no longer viable. Now, should you not want to have this happen, it has been recommended, and I believe this works, is to take, when it's still wet and good, when you're finished, mist it with a little water, and then some people say distilled water. I don't know, that gets a little crazy, but all right, let's just say distilled water to be perfect. Then you put a little piece of saran wrap over here and then screw down the lid. Had I done that, this probably still would have been good. But then I didn't do anything to this one, and guess what? It's still good. And that was May 2005. So there you go. Now today I'm going to take this canvas. This is an 8x8 canvas. I happen to have some of these, and I thought this would be a cute picture. I could square this up a bit, make it kind of cute. And maybe emphasize the poppies more, since we're talking about texture. So this is a Winsor Newton Artist Deep Edge canvas. You can see that it's got the edges on it, and so that you don't frame these, you just hang them on the wall just the way they are, which is nice. That's a nice thing to do. So I'm going to put that aside, and this is what we're going to be using. I happen to have one that I got sort of ready for us. I started with, because this is the underpainting is kind of boring. I started by misting the canvas, and I did a layer of burnt sienna here. And I came down, let's see, about, I don't know, about 3 inches on each side, made kind of a little curvy line here. And I made a gray sort of sky, and I added a tiny bit of the modeling paste in it. And it may have not been clever at this point, but I did, because I wanted a little texture. And I got that gray color by mixing mostly white, like 85–90% white, with some ultramarine blue, a tad of cad red medium, and a little tiny bit of burnt sienna, and I got this sort of grayed color. That's how I got this gray looking sky. Now, believe it or not, this is still wet a little bit. So what I want to do is just show you, because when you start adding and how much modeling paste did I put in that original little mixture. I think I put about a teaspoon of the modeling paste in there. So what we're going to do is, what you want to do is have a separate plate for this, for mixing. I didn't put it in this, but I did have it on another thing. And I got a little bit of texture going on with this. And then I wasn't happy with it, so then I scrape most of it off, and this is what I've got left. And actually, I don't hate that. See, that was a happy accident. I really, seriously, I just went ahead and scraped a lot of this off and then smoothed it out. Now, this color down in here has a little bit, there's some hills in here. And let me just show you real quick. See these little, well, not hills, kind of little gray blue trees? That's the suggestion of these, and I add a little bit of phthalo to get that. But what we're going to do now is going to stop, and I want to make sure this is really good and dry. I'm going to dry it one more time, because when I touch it, my fingers are going tacky. So I'm going to stop the recording and dry this. Okay, we're back. Now I've got a little trick. I buy a pretty good hairdryer. So I see some people using the cheapest hairdryer they can find at the drugstore. I've got a pretty good hairdryer. I got this one at Costco. I think it was like 20 bucks, but they kind of were a discount store. But it has a cold button. You want a cold button on your hairdryer, because I know this is dry now because I gave it a blast of cold air after I added the heat, and that set the paint. And particularly when you're using gels and stuff like this, and modeling paste and stuff like this, molding or whatever they want to call them, you want to be able to skin them over at least. So you want a cold button on your hairdryer. Alright, so here's what we got. This is dry. Now I'm going to go ahead and just take a brush, because this is one of the tricks with, when I don't like a painting that's just 100% texture. I like it where it's sort of a combination of both. So I've got a little texture on the sky, but not much. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in these little background trees a little bit better than I have them. See these right here? So I'm just going to go and grab some phthalo blue and yellow oxide and come right here like this with it. Make this sort of green color. And then grab a little of this gray and mix with it, just like that. See that? Maybe a little bit more white. Use my little tiny brush here. That's kind of the color I want it, like that. And then I want to come in here like this, and using a small brush right over all this, I'm going to tap in. It's going tap, 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 tap as I paint these odd little shapes. I was considering doing a series of videos on common mistakes new artists make, and sometimes some old-timey artists too. I've seen it. Not exclusive to new artists, but there are some common mistakes that happen, and one of them is with cloning. And you're going, what's cloning? Well, cloning is where you, like for instance, this shape and this shape are almost identical. Do you see that? And you know why? Because when you make the letter A, like that, there's the letter A, right? Everybody's good with that? Here's the letter B. I make that the same way I did today as I did when I was 8 or 9, when they taught 6, 7, whatever age I was when they taught me how to do it, okay? I make it the same. Let's add a little bit more Cad Red Medium and gray that up a little bit more. There we go, too much. There we go. So I'm just keeping up here, and I want these little bushes up here to be higher. All right, we were talking about cloning before. I was suddenly really interrupted myself with thoughts of changing the color. So alright, so we're talking about cloning. Now here's the deal. Cloning happens because your mind doesn't know the difference between a tree and the letter A. So the reason that you're making the same letters that you did when you were 7 or 8 when you learned handwriting is your mind just becomes this fabulous automatic copy machine. And it just will keep repeating shapes. And it'll do it for everybody, not just new artists. It does it for everybody. I'm going to add a little Dazzling Purple to this, kind of grade it up. I'm going to come all the way over here a little bit with this. So what happens is that once it's decided on a tree shape, even if you were 5 the last time you discovered a tree, you can be looking at anything and you start to make the tree, and suddenly you make the tree you made when you were 5 and you're going, oh gosh, I just can't paint. You have to be consciously aware that your mind is only trying to be friendly doing this for you. It thought that's what you wanted. You want to be able to do the same letters that you did as a kid. It doesn't know the difference. So your friendly mind is going, what? You didn't want to do that? No, you didn't want to do that. See, look here. I didn't want to do these two. They look exactly the same. So what am I going to do? I know that. Now I'm going to recognize it. And I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to change the shape of one of these. Somewhat. Anyway, I'll just change the shape a little bit. Still kind of looks too much the same, doesn't it? Gosh. All right, so let's... Oh boy, we got to fix that. So maybe I'll come back in with my sky and poke a hole in this. here like that. Okay, so I had to change it a little bit. You can see where I did, because I promise you, as an artist, you just are aware that this happens and you fix it. Sometimes you'll see an artist saying, oh, too much of the same shape, but I want to show you why that happens. You're not a terrible artist when you do that. Let's just do another little row of gray trees back here. You're not this terrible artist, but you will go, challenge you, go to the art museum and look at some guy and he's just done the most amazing painting and all his clouds are the same. Because his mind said, oh yeah, we know how to do clouds. This is what clouds are. So, and you could take it even further and suppose you could do a really fabulous pine tree. How many different kinds of pine trees are there on the planet? Tons. So you know how to do one, so then you're going to do a different kind. You're going to do, say maybe a spruce pine tree kind of thing instead of a, well, I don't know, something else, you know, some sort of Christmas tree pine tree. And you end up making the last pine tree you made, even if it was only yesterday. Your mind goes, it doesn't know the difference between the pine tree and the letter A, even if you've upgraded the program. Now it's just going to make the new upgrade pine tree. It's going to make the new upgrade bush, okay? So just keep that in mind so you won't feel bad about life when that happens. All right, now we're going to just take a minute and dry this, all right? So take a minute and dry this, and you can see how I've gotten more into the purples and the ultramarine blues as I came to the right, okay? Over this way, like that. And I'm going to just pause and dry it. All right, so we're still going. We're about 11 minutes into this. Now let me just show you what we're painting here. Can you kind of see it? See, I'm getting these sort of background trees. And then I want over in here, behind these, is sort of, it's almost ultramarine blue gray, okay? So same little brush, we're just taking a little brush here. I'll add a little more ultramarine blue to that basic gray color I did. I'm going to come back in here, a little bit more ultramarine blue, maybe a tiny bit of Dazzling Purple. You know, this was the second shot at filming this video, so I didn't tell you the colors. I guess we could have told you the colors. They're my standard color palette, really. Phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, cad yellow medium, yellow oxide or yellow ochre, cad red medium, naphtha crimson, and Dazzling Purple. And I have mixing white and titanium white. Alright, so we'll go into what the mixing white is in a minute. So I know that I need some sort of kind of gray-blue clouds, you know, not clouds, but some sort of gray-blue trees back in here that are going to be behind there. And I know that because that's what I painted the last time. So it's pretty easy. I've got my own little cheat sheet here. I know exactly what I'm painting. I don't have to decide if it was a good idea. I thought it was before. So now I'm doing that. So, all right, so this is, we've changed colors now. Said here's some gray-blue stuff, like that. Now, all right, so that's gone over to the right a little bit. Now, one of the things that's important to know is that birds should be able to fly through your trees. Did anybody ever tell you that? So let's come down here and tap some sky back. That's why we keep the gray out. I'm just going to tap some sky back like that and give a place for birds to fly through my trees. And if I tap it like this, I won't mix it into the blue paint too much. So again, this also is a good cloning protector because when you're tapping in the color, just tap, 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 you're poking a few little holes back in your trees. Maybe right there, I'll just tap, tap. There, a few little holes. Now birds can fly through my trees. Not sure about that one. Okay, there. Okay, so there, birds can fly through the trees. I'm going to have some other stuff here too, but for the most part now, there, we've broken this up just a little bit here. Now, I want to push these even farther in the background than they are. Not these so much, but these. So that's why we got out the transparent mixing white. Now let's talk about that for a minute. This is a color, I don't see a lot of people use it. It's also zinc white, makes gold. Golden calls it zinc, Z-I-N-C, I think, zinc white. This is Liquitex Heavy Body Translucent Mixing White. Why I don't use it, I don't mix this with other colors very much, but I will use it as a glaze to push back something. And I have a little bit right here on my brush. And I have a dry brush. And I'm going to just take a clean plate over here and kind of wipe off the, kind of thin it out on my brush. And then very gently, I'm just going to very gently, almost like chalk, rub over these. And this puts these in the background. You remember I had a video on how to do atmospheric perspective. This is one of the great tricks. You paint the color And then you make sure it's dry, and then I'm getting a little texture. Had a little texture on here in the background, so this is good. It's allowing it to skip over a little bit. Let's say all these trees back in here. Take a little paint. If you do too much paint, this is very unsatisfactory. You've got to kind of wipe it off on the plate and hold your brush very flat and just sort of go back and forth over it. And you can see how pushing all those little trees into the background and giving them this sort of effect that there's like maybe an afternoon fog. And this is also kind of good for if you wanted a little bit of light around the back of these trees here. Maybe you wanted to say it was a little bit lighter back here. You could tap on something like this. And this is more, it's not titanium, this is still the mixing white, but I'm using it, I haven't thinned it out as much. So I'm just basically saying that back up in here, this sort of mist is coming up like that from these trees, like that. See there? And that's a trick too. So maybe over here I might do it too. I mean, I'm just not trying to be picky, but you know. Now I have to be careful because I didn't dry these blue ones. So it will start mixing with those. But I could say that there was a little bit of light that came up here like that around the trees if I wanted to emphasize them a little bit. And then also, suppose I wanted to say there was some morning mist. This is a good trick. So I'm going to say that right here, there's some morning mist. And I'm going right into the mixing white. I'm going to tap on a little bit of morning mist that's coming up in front of these trees like this. Have you ever seen that where there's mist in a forest and it comes up between trees? So see how that's, ooh, isn't that cool? So that's what this is doing. I always get happy when I see how stuff works. I'm trying to explain it to you, but it still always pleases me when I try to do a demonstration and it's exactly what I want to have happen. All right, so see now, I've put, now I'm not going to worry about here because we've got some dark trees in front of this. So now the next thing to do is that what people never do enough of is dry. So we're going to dry this, okay? You're with me? We're drying it. So I'm pausing the video, we're drying. All right, so this is dry, we know that. Now it's time to put the next layer. And for me, it's very simple for me when I'm doing a picture like this. This was in the back, this was the next layer, this blue, and then this dark green stuff is the next layer. So you're going, yeah, okay, so we're going to make some dark green. How are we going to do that? All right, so this is our kind of Christmas tree green color. And so we want to start with ultramarine blue, and I'm going to just get this a little mixing plate here like this. Just hold it like this. I'm going to grab some ultramarine blue like this, and maybe a little tiny bit of Dazzling Purple, about 2%. Then I'm going to grab a little tiny bit of Cad Yellow Medium. Ooh, that's nice. That's a nice deep dark forest green, like about 2% Cad Yellow Medium. See that? A very, very nice dark forest green. Because I put the purple with it, it's going to be all happy. Now, this brush is probably a little big. I don't know why I grabbed that brush. Alright, let's just take a smaller brush. I think I grabbed it because it was easy and it was in my nice pile of brushes. But if you're taking brushes out of the water, you want to make sure that you are wiping them off on a rag. So, you know. Now we're using a small brush again because this is a little picture. If it was a bigger brush, bigger picture, I'd use a bigger one. Alright, now we're not going to clone here, but we're going to say that there's some trees that are in front of all these, okay? And just want some different edges here, just some sort of pine tree. They're not necessarily pine trees, but there's some sort of, I don't know what they are, but there's some sort of trees, and we're just going to make sure that we've got the tops varied in the height. And I'm not going to have to come up too far along here, but I am going to say that like back behind here, I'm going to go ahead and create sort of a path of dark green. Let's say that there's where my trees are coming. They're more on the focus, and then maybe over here I've got a couple small ones all by themselves. So remember, thick and thin, thick and thin. So there you go, putting in the trees like this. Come down here right on top of all this dried stuff. That was easy. Now remember how we made this green, because we're going to need a lot of it. I want another little kind of a stop over here with some taller bushes on this side. I'm going to say that there's some taller bushes right here. These are trees that are right in front of everything. And as long as I'm doing that, you know what? I've got two trees that are going up here like this into some bushes up here. So let's go ahead and put those in My best guess for this is we'll dry it first, all right? So here's some higher, remember, you want to change the heights of stuff. Don't clone, don't make the same thing. It's not grass. These are little kind of different heights of trees. You know, some got more vitamins than others and grew up higher. Think about that. Think about your little forest that's growing back here. I think I want these even higher here. Let's say these are bigger. And I'd say that this is a bigger set of trees in here, like that. If they're bigger, they're a little closer to us, like that. Okay, so these are the ones that are behind. Yeah, that looks pretty good. That works for me. And then let's take a little yellow oxide, okay, just on the brush like this, and let's just tap on some, and tap it in there. Just going to lighten up some places on it. Probably, I'm saying the light's kind of coming maybe, I don't know, this way. And I'm not trying to lighten the whole thing up, but if I take just a little yellow oxide, why these front ones are still wet, I can lighten up the green someplace. I wouldn't use Cad Yellow Medium because that would make it too bright. Okay, so far it almost looks like mountains, but I don't care. We got to stop the video and dry this. All right, so this is dry. Now, let's take our water mister and mist our paints one more time because they've been sitting out for a bit. And I'm going to dip a brush like this that's going to go to a point. And I'm going to just take a little bit of this dark green color that we made. Where did we make it? Where did I put it? Oh, I put it on this plate, so I guess I better mist that plate. Alright, so I'm going to just make this a little bit more fluidy, like ink, but still not too runny. And I'm going to say that there's up here like this, up here to my sky in here, I'm going to just say, I'm going to say that there's a tree coming up here. Now the harder you push on a brush like this, the fatter the line. Now in this case, my elbow is resting right here on the edge of the table, and my hand's doing this. My fingers are literally pulling the thing back. So I'm going to start very little pressure up here. Remember, trees like to Y, so make sure you've got a Y. And they're a little darker at the trunk. So there's one. That was pretty easy. Maybe I've got another tree that's coming this way. I want to make sure you've cleared the dark blue. And then maybe there's a little branch up here like this. You can be a little, it can be kind of interesting. Maybe there's some tiny one way back here like this. Little small one there. Make sure you're reloading your brush. These are my big ones. I think I want another little branch coming off of here and coming back and connecting to the base of that. So there you go. So that's, you see, that was pretty easy, wasn't it? And that's the trick on something like this, is to just barely touch it using just the very top tips of this brush. There we go. So there's my tree. And maybe I've got one coming this way. We don't know. Maybe that came off camera here. I recommend every time you do a tree, reload your brush. I see that you may see me do that, but you may not be aware that I did this. And I'm going to kind of lean this one in a little bit. This is sort of this little massive trees that's growing up here like this. All right, so that's what we've got. And I'm not sure that I've got this one wide enough here at the bottom. I want this one to be a little more substantial. So this is my main tree, so I'm going to widen it up. You can always make them fatter. Kind of hard to skinny them up, but you can make them fatter. There you go. All right, so there's our main tree. And do I need to do anything here? Do I need to fix any of these little bushes? I don't know, maybe. Something like that. Okay, so I fixed some bushes. There's my main tree. This little brush goes in water. And now we're going to take, I don't know, one of these little squared off bright brushes. And this is where you might consider drawing the trees. Let's just take a minute. I'm not going to pause the video. I think that's sort of dumb. Let's just skim these over real quick. Dry this. Just take a second and dry it. See how close I'm holding the hair dryer to this? I don't want this too, because I had water on the brush. I don't want this too runny. Now, coming back up here, I like these trees because look, can you see what I'm painting? See how this is all sort of almost in the phthalo blue colors? So I'm going to grab a little phthalo blue because it's more of a turquoisey color and add it to this, and a little Cad Yellow Medium, a little phthalo blue, and a little white. Ooh, now I've got this sort of blue-gray color but it's more warm. It's a warmer color. and maybe, let's see, a little tiny bit of Cad Red Medium in it to gray it out, like 1%. All right, so now I've got this. Now what I want to do is I'm going to hold my brush straight up and down like this, and I'm going to tap. See, I've got this great, the brush is sort of fuzzy, and so when I tap it straight up and down like this, over this way, all the way to the corner, this is my first sort of layer. And I've dried those trees enough. We would come up in front of those limbs. And I want to come way over here like this. And I'm getting away with this. This is because the brush is straight up and down. And I'm just holding it and then just doing that. Okay? And if you'll notice, it's a little bit frayed here. That's why you never throw your old brushes away. Now, okay, so that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue and add to that. I haven't changed anything, and I'm going to keep tapping. Little tiny bit of ultramarine blue, barely touch it now. Maybe use some ultramarine blue out here on the edges of this. A little bit. But remember, you want these sort of wispy. Let's just talk about that. You want these a little wispy. Now, just stop. Now you've got to dry it. And then you can come back with a little other stuff, okay? Because remember, we talked about maybe wanting to add a little texture, but I wanted a map of where you were going to put it. All right, so let's just dry this. I'll pause it. We'll dry it, and then we'll talk about how to add texture to this. All right, so this is dried enough where we can add texture. So I'm going to open my 10-year-old bottle, jar of Golden Extra Gloss molding paste, and I'm going to make sure you have a clean spoon for this. I'm going to put a little out on the on my plate, and I like more texture as we come into the foreground. I think that's sort of nice. So you can do a palette knife with texture, and that's such a nice cheat. It works so well. Palette knives are just nifty keen to do that with. You can just absolutely, let's see if I can find where's the one I just had? This one like this. I could come in here with this green color and then add about, I don't know, 5% of this modeling paste to this. Then that color. Now watch what happens. I'm going to just go on top of here like this and tap it up, avoiding my edges. Do you see that? Where I've got it all kind of wispy. And I'm just tapping this up and down like that. Put a little, and then just sort of smack it up and down like this very gently. And this is going to create a little bit of texture on these trees. There's a trick to this. There's a little hair here. Okay, now I might take a little bit of white on my palette knife like this, move it over here. Remember, I always like to straighten these out like that. Now, while this is still wet, I'm going to tap in a little tiny bit of white, and the more I tap it, the white will blend into this color and create a lighter color. Okay, so here's a little light things, and then I'm going to come back with a little green on top of that same green color, because that's too light. I want to say that here's my lighter trees up here. Now here's the trick. Unlike your regular paintings, this is, suddenly you've got everything is really, really happily wet. See, I just keep tapping this. The more I tap it, the white disappears. And I'm kind of squishing this into there. I'm going to bring a little bit more blue. Come right on top of there like that, barely touching it now. Kind of this light blue-green color. So I wanted these little white highlights to show, like this on the tree, like that. Okay, now I have to skin this over because I want to put some dark. I've got to skin all this over. And if I try to put the dark right now, it's too thick. It's just like trying to add more peanut butter on top of wet peanut butter. You just, at some point, it doesn't work. Okay, so let's take a minute. We're going to pause again, and we're going to dry all this, and I'll show you our tricky stuff. All right, so I dried this, and I hit it with the cold air. So if I dug down with my fingernail, it would still be wet. I mean, keep in mind that this little jar stayed good for 10 years. So this doesn't dry easily, okay? That's okay. We don't mind. We know the trick. We hit it with the warm air and then the cold air. Now I've got some ultramarine blue, Dazzling purple, and a little phthalo blue. And I'm going to go on top of this and touch it like this now. And then I want to put in my darker green, you know, darker leaves. Now, could I have done this with the brush? Yeah, let me just show you how. I wouldn't have had any water on the brush because I want to be very careful I don't disturb this. I would just have brushed this across the texture, and it would have skipped over some of that color. Sometimes a brush can be pretty tricky. It skipped over. We already added the texture, so it's skipping over the texture. And then we're saying that it's just, let's see, and then some of this is peeking through. You see underneath here, this is sort of our layer. And like I say, this is one of the tricks you can do. Just knowing how wet or how dry something has to be. All right, so there's our next layer of tree. Now I want to take a little phthalo blue and white and just make this sort of light blue color. Now, this is a little bit too turquoisey, so I'm going to add just a hair of Cad Red Medium and make this sort of warm gray. And then I'm going to just touch over this again, just tap on top of here on this tree, maybe up in here. And do I need to dry this again? Maybe. You know, at some point you have to decide, well, is this going to work? Because for me, what I would tell you is, for me, acrylics are all about layers. So I need to come down here maybe and make some little more trees. Could have come down straight like this, straight up and down with this brush here, and it's going to make some fun little trees down here like that. So that's nice. And then what about down into here? Let's cross across this tree trunk right here, holding it straight up and down. You know, I can always put some of this back if I need to. All right, so that there's that. And let me see, what could we do if I put a little more white in that color? Now I've got a light gray color. Let's see, a little bit more light in there. Do I need any more light? Maybe back up in here. Tap it down. So this is what we're talking about layering. How do you layer something? Ooh, I like that color. Do I want a little light next to, I need to poke a hole in some of these trees. Like that. I can go back and do that. So this is that, but we've got some pretty good trees here, and you can see that. I'm going to take a little bit of dark blue and put it back on top. A few places, just touch it. I've already got the texture, so I don't have to keep adding texture. I already put it, and it's drying, so this will all be textury looking. Okay, and you remember, thick and thin, thick and thin. You don't want it all just the same because you don't get the 3D effect as easily. Okay, so those are those trees. That's pretty good. And here's our palette knife. Now, next we're going to just start coming on down into here with color. So I'm going to put this away, this brush away, start with the brush, clean brush, and I want to add my background color. Now we're going to go into yellow oxide and titanium white, like this, and I'm going to just come over all of this, because this is dry, right? All this is dry. Now the brush strokes make a difference. We're starting to go up and down like this. It's a little yellow oxide, titanium white. I think there was a tiny bit of ultramarine blue in this, because this is looking a little bit kind of like a gray-green color. So even though this is our kill here, I want to make sure that we're all going down here like this with our brush. And then up here like that. There we go. This is all about the poppies. All about the poppies. So cad yellow oxide, a little bit of white, a tiny bit of ultramarine blue, like less than 1%. Keep layering this down, and don't worry, you've got some different colors. You see, I'm doing little tiny brush strokes and overlapping. This is the brush stroke, this is the brush stroke, this is one we've overlapped. Overlapping means you've caught some of the wet edge. Okay, and that's why we did this sort of reddish brown underpainting, so if anything shows through here, this is where you'd come back and probably paint your sides too, but we're not going to. Just imagine we did. Okay, so there's that. So far, so good. And I think I want to come down about this far with this color. So we'll just, because remember, everything is about layering. I'm a big fan of just painting it a color and then layering it over with the next color. I love that, as opposed to just I know a lot of people do it differently, and this is just, I like it, this effect when you're always layering. Always layering. And maybe I'll put a little bit more ultramarine blue with that yellow oxide now. A little bit more, maybe turn it a little bit more green. So I come down here, and I'll bring some of these green tones in here. Just down toward the bottom. Don't worry if you're, I'm just mixing it with my brush. I still added white. A little more yellow oxide. Here we go, a little bit stronger, a little bit deeper colors as I come down into here. And I think this is going to be kind of in the shadow part, so I'll bring some up here and blend this in. Just scrape off the excess paint. Do 2 or 3 brush, you know, you'll see me one, let's just count it, because sometimes I see people, I watch them paint, no one gets enough paint. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then turn it over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, turn it over. The minute you start doing something and nothing happens, get more paint. Find yourself doing that and nothing's happening, get much more paint. Now, could you add a little texture to this background too? Yeah, you could. You could take a little tiny bit of this modeling paste and add it to this, just a little tiny bit, and put it on your brush. And that would add, it would also probably allow the drying time to extend a little more if you wanted to. But we're getting, believe it or not, we're getting texture just because we're layering too. Does that make sense? We're getting texture because we're layering and how we're putting on the paint. Keep overlapping it like this, getting colors and overlapping. All the brush strokes are going up and down. There we go. All the brush strokes up and down, up and down. It's just a little bit lighter in here. Now I'm going to switch colors altogether. And, well, maybe not. Let's keep going with this. I think I like this as an underpainting. Now I'm back into the yellow oxides. Haven't rinsed my brush, but I'm coming down this way. And I'm saying that all this is going to have these kind of gold tones to it. And you see a little bit of the burnt umber, burnt sienna underpainting. If you were looking at some of the paintings of the old masters, their canvas was sort of this color anyway, which was kind of cool. So let's see, I'm out of yellow oxide. I have to put some more out on my plate. Here we go. I've used it up. People say, how much paint do you put out? I generally just put about as much paint out on a canvas as goes on a tube of toothpaste, like that, because you can't get it back in the little tube, but you can always put more out. And it, you know, and if it's been sitting out for a while, you know, that's not as helpful. So now I'm just into pure yellow oxide now, right out of the tube. See that? So I come on down here, all layering these colors, all layering these greens and golds. Just like that. And all the way down here into this bottom corner, we're just going to cover all this in yellow oxide. And if you get a different color, if you put a little, what would happen if you put some white with it? Is our little tiny bit of ultramarine blue with it. It's not the end of the world. That's purple, where the ultramarine blue goes. It's not the end of the world if you change some colors in here. This is just some colors in your underpainting. Though I think that purple's pretty. It kind of blended nice with that. Purple and yellow are the complements, so when you add a bit, it grays one or the other. You add yellow to, let me just move all this out of the way now. If you add yellow to purple, it grays it. Okay, so see how I came all the way down here with this. And if your pattern's a little different than mine, I promise you it just doesn't matter. We're going to cover all of this back up. Here's a little green in here by just adding some ultramarine blue. And don't be afraid to put paint on your brush. Stay away from the water. If you want texture, for gosh sake, stay out of the water. And that means don't keep dipping your brush in water. This isn't watercolor. This is acrylic paint. So you want to do that. Boy, that almost looks like a signature, doesn't it? Let's just tap that out. All right. So now I'm going to just take this and dry it. This is another place where we're going to pause and we're going to dry this picture. Okay, that's pretty. I already like this. Now let's just talk about what we're painting here. This is what we're going to paint, right? Well, we're doing pretty good, don't you think? This is what we're painting? Okay. So let's just talk about, when you're looking at something like this, you got to ask this, like the chicken and the egg, which came first? Now, the red is on top of this green. You can see that. All the red is on top of the green, but then some green is on top of the red. So we're going to have sort of a combination of both. We got some dark green in here, and then some of the green is on top of the red. So you just have to kind of look at something and decide how that's going to be. So we know that sort of just if I were to just, oh gosh, I'll just kind of up in this area down in here like this, almost like a boot shape. It's going to be darker green. The trick is to do little tiny brush strokes. Remember, when the old masters were painting these pictures, these kind of pictures, nothing was drying for them. So they had to kind of just, you know, they had to wait a while, or they had to just sort of very gently layer one color on top of another. So let's get out our dark green colors again. Let's take some phthalo blue and ultramarine blue and a little cad yellow medium and a little tiny dazzling purple. And let's make us a really nice dark green. Now, why did we introduce phthalo blue? Because it's a little bit warmer. I'm going to get a little bit more yellow. Now, you're talking about 1% cad yellow medium to make this green. And some dazzling purple because I still want it dark. Now I'm going to add a little bit more of this cad yellow medium here. Put it here and then sneak it in because I don't want this too bright. Still want a nice dark green color. Alright, that's pretty good. And here's a little bit of my modeling paste that I'm going to add to that. See that? Just add a little bit of that to there, like that. Okay, like that. Now this brush that I've been using is going to be way too big for that, but I could come back over here and add some of this texture right on top of these trees in the front. Just do a little, it's a good color. What would happen if I added just another little layer right here? Kind of roll the paint off the brush, kind of get little globs of it, and just say that there, I'm not going over too far, I'm not going all the way to the top of these, but I'm going to say that there's some texture going up on here like this. Like I say, you can add texture, you just have to think about how you're doing it. Now, let's just take in here, I'm going to just do little tiny brush strokes like this, and I'm going to add some green. And every little brush stroke is same up and down area, and I'm using almost the corner of my brush. Just going to scoop up paint, come in here like this, kind of roll off the edges, because when I'm adding texture, I'm almost, it's like putting little bits of peanut butter or something down. Where's a palette knife? I don't know. Here's one. Scrape it up on a palette knife like this, so that you can kind of pull it off your palette knife, and I'm just dropping on this little bit of paint. You see that's almost little globs, and I'm just touching and lifting up, and it's sort of just hanging in there all the way to the edge. And someone says, how much of this can you use? You can use about 50-50, but remember, it's some, you know, if I was going to do that, I'd almost have to come back tomorrow and show you how to put the flowers on, which I might do. I might just do all this green here and add even more crazy texture to it, and then, you know, let this dry overnight, and then do a second video and put it together and show you how it works. Here it is. Here it is on my pack of my palette knife. Now I'm just going to get a little bit of this. Let's move my picture so I can see where I'm putting stuff. There, that works. Let's just move it down here like, ooh, that was dumb. That's still wet. Okay, so I know I don't need this down in here, so I'm going to just tap away. When you're doing texture, you want to keep getting more. I'm going to tap away. Got some light green showing through. Some of these colors are peeking out from underneath. Let's get some more paint. And I'll tell you what, this goes through paint very quickly. So I'm going to scoop some up, kind of a glob here. Just want it just on the tip of this brush. You could use a smaller one. This is a little bit bigger brush for me. I'm just being lazy and don't feel like grabbing another one, but you could use a smaller brush. Kind of get a combination of the palette knife and your brush, so that you're sort of just plopping these little bits of texture on here. The nice thing about acrylics is that this will, if it didn't dry today and you didn't have a hairdryer, I promise you this will be dry by tomorrow, and it's perfect background for these poppies that we're going to put. So we're going to come down here like this and scrape it off down here at the bottom. Well, it's kind of dark down here at the bottom. I don't mind some of this light showing through. down here at the bottom. Now I'm just going to scrape up some more paint because I'm out. It uses a lot more paint. Anytime you use a palette knife or texture, stuff like this. But instead of just trying to use your paint thick, because acrylics, when the water evaporates, they have a tendency to go flat. Did you know that? They do. So the secret is to add one of these textures. Another one I really like is Liquitex makes something called a really light modeling paste. It's really fluffy and light. It's almost like whipped. It's so light, it's like whipped cream almost. And it dries really well with the hairdryer. This stuff is heavy. Now I'm out of paint. Do you see that? This is as far as I've gotten, and I've got to mix more paint. So that's what you've got to be aware of. Is just don't keep going. Take a minute and mix the paint. So let's just put, for the sake of expediency, let's just pull. We know what we want. We want phthalo blue. Okay. We want cad yellow, and we want ultramarine blue. Okay. We want ultramarine blue. Let me just show you here. Here. Phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, Dazzling purple. Okay. Just put some here like that. Want some cad yellow medium. How's my time on this video? Where am I going? 46 minutes. I might be done. Let's see where I am. Try to keep these at an hour. Alright, so oh yeah, that was yellow oxide. I wanted cad yellow medium. Where did that go? Here. Let me put my brush here. Cad yellow medium. And we want white. So, where'd that go? Here's some white. And you put the white away from your mediums because they look too much the same. All right, now we're going to go ahead, take the little palette knife, start with the blues. Put some blues back over here, kind of half and half. About 5% Dazzling purple. Get a little yellow, put in there. All right, there's our dark green. A little tiny bit of cad red medium, maybe. There you go. There's our dark green color. Now I'm going to take my gel and mix it. I'm out of gel. Oh gosh, I'm out of gel. So now I have to get some more gel out. This is why I always say have a separate spoon ready. You want to be careful you don't contaminate your stuff. So I'm going to just pull a little more gel out on here like that. There we go. And then I'm going to just put the lid back on. Put the lid back on. This will dry eventually, even if in 10 years it stayed very nice. Now, how much of this? Let's just add about that much. Put it in there. That looks pretty good. All right, so that's going to give us make the paint feel a little thicker. Did 2 of those. Now, scrape it up on there. Let's put this little brush away. Start with the smaller one. There. Now, smaller one, roll it off, and then put it, I like to roll it and then put it. There you go. So I'm even making more texture now. I might put a little more texture in this one, and that's too much. So, because remember, when you're doing stuff like this, it's going to be like adding frosting. I can't say this enough. Frosting on a cake, peanut butter. So you see, I'm kind of I put the gel and then I sort of flatten it out, kind of roll it off the brush. I've got this a little bit thicker. This has all kind of gone flat on me. Not happy with that, so I'm going to add a little more texture to some of this. Thick and thin, thick and thin. Just all have to be the same height, but thick and thin. The more gel, the higher it's going to stand up on your canvas. You can do about 50-50. Someone says, how much can you do? 50-50. I didn't. I did about 20% gel, probably. Modeling paste. That could have been anything. All right, so there you go. So there's my stuff here, and then maybe over in here I'll add just a few before I change colors. Oh, how about down here in this corner? Yeah, some before I change colors. All right, now how are you going to change colors? Well, that's easy. Let's put the brush away. All right, here's our dark green, which we're going to pile up over here like that. Scrape off the extra. Now, if I want it lighter, all I have to do a lighter color, I'm going to add more yellow, obviously. Well, that's just really amazingly ugly, so let's add a little bit of phthalo blue to it. All right, so that's a brighter green. That's two circus colors. That's like a circus color. So now we're going to go put some red in it, or purple to dot. We could have done purple too. We have some Dazzling purple. Let me just show you what happens when you do that. A little bit of Dazzling purple. If you put in there, and purple will gray that for sure. It's a little too much. Here's some white. Let's add some white to that. Lighten that up. Oh, that's pretty. I like that color. Kind of a purpley gray color. I'm going to add a little bit more cad yellow medium to it on one side. I'm a big fan of getting a lot of different greens. So now, okay, so I like that. Now, same thing. Here's our modeling paste. I'm just going to add a little bit to that. Like that, a little bit more. A little bit more yellow in it. A little bit of white here. All right, we got a couple greens going. Now, using the tip of my brush, I didn't rinse anything. I'm just coming up here like this, going right off the palette knife, and I'm adding some lighter colors. And let's see, let me just wipe the palette knife off because that's a little darker than I want. And I'm going to come up here like this and say that there is some lighter greens that are right on top of all of this. I might do one or two strokes, come back, and then pick up a little bit. You could, if you get one pile that's too high, you can kind of move it somewhere else. Just kind of scrape it and roll your brush and move it. I'm going to come over here like this. This takes a little bit more time, I think, because you have to kind of give it some real serious thought where you want these. But we know that we want some lighter greens in here, up here, right on top of all of this. Let's see, let me just zoom in. Okay, other way. Alright, so I'm going to just say that there's our zoom. That feels as if maybe I can autofocus this a little bit. That's too dark. Autofocus it a bit more. Let's see, I'm going to zoom out and autofocus it. There, and then I'm going to zoom in. There, okay, so there you can kind of see what I've got. Yeah, about like that. So now I'm going to come over here like this, and I can touch right on top of some of these. Remember, if you're careful, you can go right on top of some of the dark ones. Kind of overlap, and there's not spots. These are leaves. So we're going right on top of this underpainting that we did. You'll notice that every few, about 2 or 3 leaves, I scrape up more paint. 2 or 3 leaves, I get some more, because I'm going for texture now, not just color. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to do that. But because I'm going for texture, I'm adding more color to here, like that. So keep adding color. Now, what about down in here? Yeah, maybe there's some here, like this, kind of peeking out here, like this. I've left a few little spots over here. I'm not trying to lose all my stuff. And the thing of it is that because this is wet, it's going to change a little bit on you. Here's some more texture. Now remember, we're going to put poppies on top of that, and they're going to have texture too, so this will have to be dry. Here's a mistake some people make when they're trying this. They think, I'm going to do Russian roulette, I'll be careful, I'll put the red on top of this green, wet green, this wet gelled high modeling paste green, and I will just very carefully dump these poppies on there and it'll be okay. And promise you, it will not be okay. You will have a hot mess. So if you're not going to go ahead and dry this, that's okay. You may have put so much gel in this, it's not drying well. Just wait till tomorrow. Just go away for a couple hours. You don't even have to wait till tomorrow. Just go away a little bit. And then come back and add your poppies, that when you put your finger on this, it's dry. Now, I want to put a little bit of yellow oxide just as I'm mixing as I go, and come up here, a little yellow oxide on this. Come up here a little bit with some tinier leaves. The leaves should be smaller as they go farther away from you. These little green bits of stuff. Smaller little dabs of paint. And I'm still letting some of the underpainting show through. See that? And then what about down in here? I'm going to just mix a little dark green into this and sort of have a third green, and just add a little more green into it. Here's my third green color. It's not quite the dark and it's not quite the light. That's a little trick you can do. Coming around like that, scooping up paint, scoop it up and then put it. Scoop it up and then plop it. We're seeing less and less of that gold color that was underneath. That's why I wasn't all that worried about what you did. Okay, and then maybe here, over here on the sides, I definitely need to do something. And then what do you do with the leftover gel stuff? Believe it or not, because you put gel in this, you could actually put this extra paint, if you mix too much, in a little container. And it would, for the most part, you could use it again next week. This will definitely keep your paint wet longer. Now I want a few of these little darker ones hiding up in here just a little bit. Like that, a little bit back in there. And then what about way down here? Oh, let's see what we need. I need white. Where did I put the white? I can't find it now. Ah, here. White. I'm going to add some white to this. Like this. See there? A little bit of white. A little bit of phthalo blue. A little bit of white. I want some... I want to come up here with some blue-green kind of leaves up here like this. Maybe way up here. Let's put a little more blue in that. There we go. A little, deepen that up just a hair. And remember, once this dries, you can change the color. It's dry. You could go right back over it with yellow little paint. It doesn't have to even be gelled anymore. And paint that. Okay, so it kind of came up there like that. Let me just zoom back out so you can kind of see where I went up there. I like that color. I want some of it down in here too. I'm going to put a little of that into here at toward the bottom. I think that's pretty. So I'm going to just add a bit. And remember, if I'm going over other colors, it's all starting to mix in. And tomorrow I can put, or after this dries, I can put some of this color back too. So you could just put, if you were using a plate like this, you could just put another plate on top, mist this, and seal it. It would probably hold up for the night. If you were worried about containers and not having any, and suddenly I've caused you problems, you're going, I was fine until you mentioned that. Alright, now, a little bit of cad yellow medium, a little bit of white. Same greens, just cad yellow medium and white. I'm going to come up here like this, a little bit of cad yellow medium, a little bit of white, same greens in here. I want a few bright ones in here. Just a few dots. Now, this is all wet, so what happens when I do this is I'm mixing almost on top of this. I have to be very careful. Just pick up my brush. It's like I was looking at a friend of mine walk across the store the other day, and she's over there at Jerry's Artarama. She's 24, and she's really a cute gal and very sweet. And I noticed that she was just sort of shuffling her feet. And I thought, that's a good example. You don't want to shuffle your brush. I told her if she didn't want back problems when she got older, that she shouldn't shuffle her feet. Probably didn't want to hear that. But I'm just saying, when you shuffle your feet and don't pick them up, throw your spine off. They tell you that stuff. Better to know early than having somebody tell you at 50 or 60 or 70, gosh, you just hadn't shuffled your feet so much, you wouldn't have these back problems now. Better to find out sooner. And the same thing with your brush. Pick your brush up, put it down. Pick it up and put it down. And alright, so there we go. So I've got some nice colors of green on here. I like what I've got. And here's some more dark. Ooh, I'm just not even cleaning my brush here. I want some more dark right in here, like this. Alright, there we go. There we go. Just kind of scooping up the paint, plopping it back on. Really adding some texture. I want you to see how much texture you can add. The first layer kind of disappeared on me. So that's okay. I'm adding more. Okay, so I mean, that works. That absolutely works. There's kind of a big space in here. Let's just fix that. All right, so you see a little of this gold background color underneath. You see all this. Now, at the trick here, this is where we stop the video, and we're going to dry everything. And then and only then will we come back and add the green, and then maybe a little bit more blue and lighter colors. See, if I do this now, even though I'm adding the light blue, it's just, I have to be so careful. It's just better to not mess with it. I'm so much better off just coming back tomorrow when this is dry and touching it up so I don't get all one color of green. But there you saw a lot about mixing greens here. This is our flowers. This all goes in the water here. We're going to just stop the video at this point, and we will come back and finish this, all right? This will be our poppy painting. This is what we're going for right here, except with texture. Except with texture. And so we've done pretty well, don't you think? I think we've done remarkably. We just have to put the red flowers on top. So go ahead, and thanks for hanging in there with me. I think this has been just about an hour. Yeah, it has. So this is what it took to get to here, and we'll move on tomorrow.